So, welcome guys. Today this is my second video of learning of reading books to improve your English. So, let's start. I love Mr. Phelps' ideas. They are hard to implement, I know, but some people have. He related the experiences of individuals, former clients, and old associates who got rich by buying rights and holding on. Phelps wishes he had learned these insights when he was younger. Now I have a little confession to make about Mr. Phelps. I didn't actually meet him. He's been dead since 1992, having reached the ripe old age of 90. Even quote above comes not from a conversation but from his book 100 to 1 in the stock market. A distinguished security analyst tells how to make more of your investment opportunities, published in 1972. In 2011, I picked up a near mint copy of for $22. This forgotten book should be a classic. Do not let the implausibility of making 100 to 1 on your stock on your stock distracts you. The main idea is to know how such returns have happened and what investors need to do to get them. Aiming a little closer to that goal is bound to improve your results. Phelps wrote as much, just a slight change in golfer's grip and stance may improve his game. So a little more emphasis on buying for keeps, a little more determination not to be tempted to sell may fatten your portfolio. In Alice in Wonderland, one had to run fast in order to stand still. In the stock market, the evidence suggests one who buys right must stand still in order to run fast. It is superb advice. I recommend the book, needless to say, which is a pleasure to read and has plenty of good ideas, analogies, and stories. For a long time, the book was out of print, but in January of 2015, Eco Points book reissued the title and you can buy it easily at Amazon. Amazon is a 100 bagger. Well, we will look at in chapter 5, by the way. Picking, picking of where Phelps left out. Phelps' book was a study of 100 beggars from 1932 to 1971. It is not a study of every 100 beggar because he properly limited his study to cut out the tiniest of stocks. And I doubt even he had the resources to identify every 100 beggar. It is also harder to come up with a definitive list than you had think. There are complications in how you measure returns. For example, do you measure the stock prices annually, quarterly, daily, hourly? You get slightly different results each time. As some stocks may have only reached 100 times for a brief period. Even so, his book lists over 365 stocks. The latest 100 bagger started in 1967. That's a hundredfold return in just 4 years. But again, the cutoff is 1971. I decided to update his study. I started working with Stephen Jones, string advisors, to create a database of every 100 bagger from 1962 through 2014, assuming you had reinvested the dividends and also making allowances to cut the tiniest stocks. We looked for stocks that had a market cap of greater than $50 million in today's dollars prior to their hundredfold climb. This was a massive undertaking. My publisher spent more than $50,000 just to get the data. My goal was and remains simple. I want to find what these stocks have in common. I want to learn how these spectacular returns came about with an eye toward using those insights in today's market. My new study would be an update of Phelps' work. I expected to reinforce many things Phelps wrote about. I also believed we had uncovered some new insights since our computing horsepower vastly exceeds what was available to Phelps. At the start, too, I wanted to write a new book around the study to be called 100 Beggars. I had dedicated the book to the old man Phelps. So here we are. And everyone's approach to huge profits in stocks. When I was younger, I had strong preconceptions about what great investing was all about. It was long term, focused on fundamentals, and somehow a branch out Benjamin Graham's and David Todd's celebrated book called Security Analysis. A tree that yielded Warren Buffett and so many other great investors. If you were not part of this intellectual tradition, you were just doing it wrong. I am not so doctrinaire anymore. I will admit there are lots of ways to make money in markets, just as there are many different ways to make a really good pizza. Nonetheless, there is something to be said for a really good pizza that almost anyone can make with the right ingredients. In the market, you can find all kinds of crazy success stories, such as the improbable traders of market wizards fame, including Jim Rogers, Paul Tudor Jones, and Michael Steinhardt, and the oddball dancer Nicholas Darrow, famous for his book How I Made in the Stock Market, with its equally odd system. Those these never interested me. These never interested me for many reasons, but one big reason is they struck me as freakish. The gains were enormous, but the process was not replicable, certainly not by the everyman. I had a hard time believing anyone using insight from such financial freaks could really get anywhere. More likely, I imagined following such a path would lead to ruin, but here is where Mr. Phelps is different. As you will see in the next chapter, anyone can invest in a 100 bagger, and many ordinary people have. Anyone can find them or find close enough approximations. After all, who is going to complain if you only turn up a 50 bagger or even 10 bagger? Heck, most investors I know were delighted when they double their money in a few years. Studying some of the great successes and the principle behind 100 Bagger will help in the efforts to find winning stocks today. Not only 100 baggers, before we get into that, which is the meat of the book, I want to discuss some elements of study itself. The study 365 stocks that turned 10,000 into 1 million. Wow, our study also turned up 365 stocks. By coincidence, the same number fails found in his study covering a different time period. This would be the main population of stocks I poked and probed. I poked and prodded in 6 months after we created the database. I want to say a few words about what I set out to do and what I don't want to do. There are severe limitations or problems with a study like this. For one thing, I am only looking at these extreme successes. There is hindsight. There is hindsight bias in that things can look obvious now, and there is survivorship bias in that other companies may have looked similar at one point but failed to deliver a hundredfold gain. I am aware of these issues and others they are hard to correct. I had I had a statistician or newsletter reader kindly offer to help. I shared 100 bagger data with him. He was aghast. He related his concern using a little story as he wrote to me. Let's say I am curious to find out what it is that makes basketball players too tall. So I take DNA and blood samples from the starting lineups of the NBA teams. There is something huge missing here, which is all of the non-tall people. And this is of course true is to an extent. I am only looking at 100 baggers, not stocks that didn't make it. However, what I will present in this book is not a set of statistical inferences but a set of principles you can use to identify winners. If you have read Michael Lewis's Moneyball, which looks at the principles behind productive baseball players, you know this is a worthwhile exercise. These principles I will share with you are undeniably true of logic, and you cannot get 100 bagger without them. This will be clear to you by the end of the book. We just have to be careful about what lessons we draw from any statistical analysis. So instead, I have made a study more in the spirit of Fell's original work. His work was more anecdotal. His work was more anecdotal than statistical. He relied heavily he relied heavily on common sense and basic truths. This reminds me The Outsiders by William Thorndike, another important book which we will get to later. This study is useful in many ways, I will argue, but it is not meant as a scientific or statistical study. Investing is arguably more art than science anyway. If investing well were all about statistics, then the best investor would be statisticians. And that's not the case. We are looking for insights and wisdom, not hard laws and proofs. So, with that, let's get started. Okay, so I will end my video here because I completed the chapter 1 of this book, 100 Baggers. And yes, this book is a very good if you are an investor. So, for investing, you must read this book because it is basically a summary or uh, a theory how you can select. In this book you get a knowledge of how you can select 100 bagger stock. Okay. So everyone should read this book, and everyone should also invest in stocks or in share market because it is very necessary for you to grow your money. So thank you guys. I completed the chapter 1 of this. So thank you.